Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
807 on WMAL, 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL. That's right, if you haven't heard, we're now on the FM dial.
How cool is that?
It's fantastic. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and New York Times bestselling author Ron Suskind joins us now. His new book, Confidence Men, has a whole lot of tongues wagging in D.C. It's a behind-the-scenes story of the financial crisis, what was going on from Wall Street to the White House. Ron, good to have you on the program.
Good to be here.
So, September 2011, that's where we are today. We're 3 years removed from the economic collapse that gave us TARP and high unemployment and all kinds of problems. I'm curious, when the Obama administration first got in 2009, they often say now they didn't realize how bad it was. Did they expect to be at this point with, high unemployment and a stagnant economy in 2011?
Yeah, no doubt they didn't. I think it's clear from the record, from the reporting and the disclosures in the book, that they were surprised. They thought unemployment would peak when they were pulling things together for that big stimulus package in December 2008, January 2009. It would peak at around 8%. Already by the summer, it was skyrocketing past 9%, and then even higher than that. They predicted it would be almost 10% at that point in the summer of 2008, in the year of 2010. The interesting point, though, that the book shows is that after that, though, they were kind of hamstrung, and they ended up debating and so-called relitigating over and over again what to do about a jobs program, and they couldn't come up with anything at all the way to the next spring, and ultimately they haven't come up with one until now. The president is active and activated just in the past week.
Who was the president's top advisor? I mean, who did he lean on the most when it comes to the economic advice? Was it Larry?
I think it'd be a left-hand, right-hand with Larry Summers and Tim Geithner. Tim obviously is the Treasury Secretary, sits atop a big building at Treasury with a big staff. Larry Summers, though, was right there in the White House, just down the hall from the president, and he was there in terms of proximity and intensity all the time. So those two.
The book has been greeted by the White House. They have sort of put together a full-out attack against your book.
Right.
And the strategy seems to be right out of PR 101. If a story or a book comes out that is very damaging to you, that doesn't make you look very good on occasion, what you do if you're a PR person is you find one little factoid that is open to interpretation, or maybe you got some little technical mistake in the story, and you say, look at this. This is wrong, or this is not right. And then they say the whole thing. They try to smear the whole piece of work by attacking some little part of it that may or may not be open to interpretation or might have a technical error. How do you feel about being on the receiving end of that kind of attack?
Well, I've been on the receiving end of that sort of thing as a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, where they looked at a story, of 1,000, 2,000 words. The White House brought a team together starting late last week of a variety of staffers to go through 530 pages of this book, line by line, to try to come up with anything at all along those lines. In any book of this length, a big book of nonfiction, you're going to find some things, especially in that very first printing. They found some typos. They've tried to blow them up into, how can you believe anything when he spelled someone's name wrong? I don't think that works. I think people are more sophisticated than that, and I think actually it makes the White House look, a bit confused. Like, what are you doing here? Don't you have better things to do with your time? But that's part of the attacks. To be frank about it, is that I'm an old-style reporter. I've been at this for 25 years, and from my way of thinking, if you hit the ball square, if you hit the bell, they come after you. That happens a lot. They have an institutional reaction of go get them. It's not because of the substance of the book. They know the book is correct. Almost all the information, all the disclosures were run by the White House before the book was published, and in virtually every key case, they respond, including the president, who responds to almost every one of the disclosures in the book,
right,
as well as the Treasury Secretary. But it doesn't matter when those news cycles hit. You just got to kick up dust and make as much trouble as you can.
One of the most controversial segments in the book, talking about how women were treated in the Obama White House. Anita Dunn quoted in your book saying, the White House actually fit all of the classic legal requirements for a genuinely hostile workplace to women. Anita Dunn denied saying that, but you let a Washington Post reporter listen to the tape of that interview. It turns out she did say that, although there was some hedging in the quote. Tell me about that fight. Yeah. And did you record everyone?
No, all the key people are recorded, and of course they all knew that. And there are more than 200 key sources here, more than 700 hours of interviews. I am not in the business of playing tapes. I've never done that before. Right. But this was one where Anita Dunn, who was going to be a key advisor to the president during his campaign upcoming, and her husband is chief counsel to the president, didn't just sort of throw out a non-denial denial, kind of a duck in a hedge like other denials have been, which are transparently not really hitting the mark. She actually actively said it was the opposite, and she told me so. So I played the tape, and I think that pretty much settled that issue as well. I think just to make a little note about it is that was a quote where I talked to Anita right before the book was published, and the smaller quote was the one that I ran by her, and she said that would be best. She pushed for that, in fact. But, it's all a bit of a little squabble. That's exactly what Anita felt, even more so. Other women felt it in the White House. I think it's important to note, though, that the reason the White House pushed me toward that so-called women's issue is to say this is the president learning how to be a boss. Right. Part of the whole issue is the growth of the president to be, in a way, more of the president that can guide his White House. It takes a while for presidents to kind of learn the ropes, especially for ones with not a lot of experience, managerial experience, or experience exercising power. And this is a case for every president, I think especially for this one, and especially problematic because of the crises he faces from the first minute he walks into office. That's really what the book's about. It's about the growth of the president, and some of it is a bumpy ride.
Ron, I noticed yesterday sort of unfortunate timing for the White House that Jen Psaki, a female communications person, left the White House yesterday. In talking to folks, has he fixed that problem with the women workforce in the White House? Has he learned from these experiences?
I think the book points out that it was dealt with. I'm not sure if you could say there isn't an issue at all now, but it's certainly not an issue like it was in those tense days through 2009 into early 2010, when many of these key meetings and these key tensions were really part of what defined, I think, at least in some small measure, the day-to-day lives of certainly some of the women in the White House. The president met with them, had a dinner in November in the residence. They aired their grievances. He was very attentive to them. But not much happened after that. At the end of that dinner, as I report in the book, there was a lot of talk about Larry Summers and Rahm Emanuel being bullies, the women being excluded. And he kind of said at the end, after they were talking so forcefully, as though suggesting that maybe Rahm or Larry should be fired, not that anyone suggested that in the meeting, the president sort of jumped ahead of him and said, look, I really need these guys. I really need Rahm and Larry. And after that, the women met amongst themselves for solidarity and support, and I think the thing did ease once the president engaged in this way. The book is actually fairly sober, and quite a bit of it is sympathetic to the dilemmas the president faced. But, of course, some of it is not, and some of it is hard for people to read. But it is the life of this president as the central actor of our era.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Ron. Great to have you on the program.
Yeah,